morning, everybody, and welcome to this morning's webinar, our very exciting annual Green Talks event. So most of you probably don't know who I am. I'm Alex Yaluz. I am the new Director of Policy and Communications here at the Burnaby Board of Trade. I've been with the Board of Trade for about 2 weeks, so I'm very excited to get to know everybody here and see more of you virtually and in person very soon. So before we start, I'd like to take a moment to recognize that we're on the traditional homeland of the Minam and the Squamish-speaking people, and to extend our appreciation for the opportunity to hold a meeting and a webinar on this unceded territory. I'd also like to thank our Climate, Sustainability, and Business program. For over 15 years, the Burnaby Board of Trade has been the leading chamber of commerce on environmental sustainability issues. And the Climate, Sustainability, and Business program houses the BBOT's continued work to promote environmental sustainability in the business community. This program is sponsored by a number of organizations which help make its work possible. Those include, at the platinum level, Simon Fraser University, the British Columbia Institute of Technology School of Business and Media, Douglas College, and Bluemouth Technologies. At the gold level, we have Electronic Arts, Hemlock Printers, ABC Recycling, the Port of Vancouver, Appia Development, Alexander College, and RICO. And as always, I'd like to thank our annual partners, who are those organizations who stand out as top corporate citizens in Burnaby and support our work throughout the year. You can see their logos on screen now. So I'd like to invite a couple of our sponsors to make some welcoming comments. So to begin, on behalf of BCIT, I'd like to introduce Tessa Jordan, who is the program head of the Sustainable Business Faculty Communication Department. I'd like to invite Tessa to say a few words to welcome today's panel.
Yes, thank you so much. I very much appreciate the opportunity to welcome everyone here today and to share a little bit about what we've been doing in the area of sustainable business at BCIT. So I'll just go ahead and share my screen here for a moment. There we are. I hope everybody can see that okay. Oh, actually, one second. How's this? I think I can tell by your yellow pallor that my slides are now being shared. So by way of welcome today, I just wanted to share a little bit about our Sustainable Business Leadership Program at BCIT. And so we're lucky to be in Burnaby with the Burnaby Board of Trade, who, as Alex said, has been leading on the climate and business file. We currently have a couple of programs to support businesses in order to make the just transition to a regenerative economy. We're also launching some new programs as this is a growing space and area. As you'll hear from our illustrious panel today, there's never been a better time to be having these conversations about sustainable business. And just by way of setting the tone here, at BCIT, when we talk about sustainable business, we really think about this idea of donut economics and the idea that we need to get within these 9 planetary boundaries while meeting everyone's basic human needs. And so that's what I'm excited and that's what I'll be listening for today when I hear our panels who are putting this into action, right? Our panelists today are all helping us get into that regenerative and distributive economy, that safe and just space for humanity. Just a bit of a history of the Sustainable Business Program at BCIT. We actually launched in 2011, so you can imagine the sustainable business conversation was quite different in 2011. And things really changed for us in 2018, and I'm sure other panelists will resonate with this date in October 2018, when the United Nations Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change released its report that said we have 12 years. We have until 2030 to limit catastrophic global warming to 1.5 degrees centigrade. And so we relaunched our curriculum in response to this increased need, right? The increased need for training in the area of sustainable business. And we're excited to be integrating those principles throughout the school business. we work on some projects, and I wanted to just share a few you can see on the screen here. Some of these are businesses that you'll recognize in Burnaby, and we're working with a variety of different organizations to help advance their sustainable business agenda through our consulting projects. And I encourage anyone to reach out who could use support for their organization with consulting projects to be able to advance this just and regenerative economy. So the question we ask, and I think all the panelists will be speaking to this today, is the world better off because your business is in it? And the answer is around, how do we become net positive? It's not just about getting to net zero, right? It's about more than getting to zero. It's about becoming net positive so that we are giving as businesses more than we're taking. And we have several programs that help to do that, to close that say-do gap. But just as I was talking with the panelists this morning, we were rehearsing our slides, and I threw this slide up there. It's now 2022, and we have 8 years to limit catastrophic global warming to 1.5 degrees centigrade. And I just want to have a warm welcome for our panelists, and a big thank you to be a part of that fight, to get into that safe and just space for humanity. And the best antidote to some of that climate anxiety that might come up when you read we have 8 years on the screen is action. And so thank you to our panelists for all the actions that they are taking, and I'm looking forward to learning alongside everyone today. Thanks, Alex.
Thank you so much, Tessa. And it's thank you so much, Tessa. And yeah, when you see we have 8 years left on the screen, it's a bit humbling. So it's great that we're all here and able to participate in these kinds of discussions. As well, to speak on behalf of our sponsors, we have Akiri Numajiri, the Business Development Associate from our annual partner, Bluemouth Technologies. So I will turn it over to Akiri.
Well, thank you, Alex. It is wonderful to be here this morning, and apology, I didn't prepare a presentation slide, so just please bear with my face. Anyways, Bluemouth Technology is very pleased to be a sponsor for this Green Talk event, as one of our main goals is to contribute to the green movement through our smart parcel locker solution. So we are a tech company headquartered in Burnaby. We develop and provide a smart parcel locker service called Blue Box to residential building, commercial office buildings, school campuses, basically wherever there's a package delivery. And Blue Box enables unattended and contactless delivery. And with Blue Box in the building, all packages coming into the building will be protected, and the entire process of parcel collection can be automated. So how can Blue Box Smart Locker benefit the environment? The simple answer is by reducing our community's carbon footprint. One of the biggest hurdles to reduce the carbon emissions in the community is the last mile delivery inefficiency. The last mile delivery refers to the very last step of the delivery process, when a parcel is moved from a transportation hub to its final destination. And that's where the inefficiency comes in. Inefficiency caused by the missed and redelivered packages, requiring carriers to take multiple trips for a single package. More trips means more carbon emissions and traffic congestions. And in fact, vehicles account for more than 30% of all emissions within Canada and 50% within Burnaby. So in order to reduce the carbon emissions in the community, the last mile delivery inefficiency has to be addressed, and our parcel lockers can be a help. The locker can reduce the number of trips for carriers, meaning less driving, less CO2 in the air. And also, since the smart lockers are accessible 24/7, carriers can start delivering parcels in the night, which can lower traffic congestion and noise pollution during the day. We've been deploying more than 100 Blue Box lockers in Burnaby and the rest of the Lower Mainland area, and we hope we can expand more so that the community can be more convenient, secure, and most importantly, sustainable. Thank you, Burnaby Board of Trade, for today's event, and I'm looking forward to today's panel speakers' presentations.
Thank you, Akari. It's very interesting to hear about the different ways that you're working towards reducing
Very
these
new
emissions. So
technology.
thank you very much. So we are very pleased to be joined today by 5 fantastic local businesses to discuss sustainability and innovation. During today's event, you will hear 5 rapid-fire presentation segments where speakers will present interesting and engaging 5-minute talks on all things sustainability. As we go through today's presentations, if you have any questions, please enter those in the Q&A box at the bottom of your screens, and we'll try to save a few minutes at the end for all 5 speakers to answer those questions. So to kick off today's events, we have Robert Safrada. Rob is a Vancouver CEO of 2 social purpose and climate leader companies, Novex Couriers and Coast to Coast Experiences. As purpose-driven CEO, he was recognized by the Globe and Mail, who in 2007 claimed, "You won't find a greener chief executive officer than Robert Safrada." There are 3 main levers that drive his work when acquiring and building companies: people, planet, and profits. Rob, over to you.
Myself. Hello, Burnaby. Thank you very much. Great to be here today, and I want to share some fun stories about our journey and show what kinds of things can be done and where we're headed. So I'll just share this, and we'll get going. You gotta find this. Here we go. There, and then I think I go like that. Is that the full meal deal? Okay, so to start, I think I'm going to make a very clear promotion that Novex is by far the greenest local same-day courier in the Lower Mainland. And since this is Green Talks, I hope everyone is already using us or will soon. But we are a local same-day courier, and that's 3,700 customers that need things every day, sometimes in an hour, sometimes later in the day or the next day. But I want to talk about some of the proof that we have, because at the end of the day, I personally get a little frustrated with a lot of others, competitors, greenwashing, etc., and our large corporations doing that. So we're really keen on the evidence. In 2004, we thought, are we a green company that delivers, or are we a courier company that doesn't make you sick? And when you look at these numbers, you'll see that it's the latter. Things like hydrocarbons, carbon monoxide, nitrous oxide, SOx, they will affect vulnerable people, young people, older people, people with breathing problems. So that's the opposite of clean air. And this is Clean Air Talks. By replacing our vehicles with electrics and hybrids, so far we reduce the particulate matter in our air that we breathe today almost to 0. So that was very exciting. And again, what's our path to 0? And I don't mean offsetting. We started offsetting in the beginning so that we were, carbon neutral, but the real effort is to reduce our footprint. And we hope to reduce it by 33%, but in fact achieved almost 60% by 2020. And now our goal is to be 0 and restorative by 2035. And I'm glad to hear that the restorative term is starting to be used and come up, because we absolutely need to do that. Companies have been the ones causing the pollution. We need to be part of the solution. Here's a couple of fun stories. So how did we start? You can imagine in 04, 05, we were wondering what to do. So our president then very proudly told me one day that he'd put a brick in each of the toilets so that we were using less water. So I still find that rather humorous, and yet it's something. It's not nothing, it's something. Good intentions. And we also have about a 6,000 square foot warehouse that's about 20 feet high, and we used to be heating it. And there was one fellow that would go in and out of there occasionally during the day. Well, we turned off the heat, bought him a warm coat, and we got a light switch. The lights would only turn on when he was in there. So those are early moves. Things have progressed since then. Another easy win, everyone can do this. is reducing your paper use. And we used to have 11 little printers. Now we have one big beauty that will allow us to double side print. And we had interdepartment competitions, lots of fun. And hopefully one day we'll get to zero on the paper, but everyone can do that kind of thing. I think I went ahead a few there. Here are what I call some of the unexpected benefits. We couldn't plan this, but this is so wonderful. Our annual driver turnover went from 40% annually to 10%. Our staff turnover went to zero. This is wonderful. We can take the benefits of the reduced hiring costs, training, experience, and put that towards being green. And a number of customers started switching to us. We weren't even selling to them because they wanted to align their brand with their values and us. And I want to recommend groups like Fairware, which is a ethically sourced promotional products company locally for you. I'm very impressed with what IKEA has been doing, groups like Patagonia. Find these groups that are B Corp certified and doing good works and save money. You know, we tell our customers that we won't send them a bill and we don't want us to send them a check for obvious reasons. And it gives us all kinds of benefits. Final thing I want to say is, and I learned this at the Globe conference a few months ago, collaboration is the new competition. This is an important, what we're doing, all of us, what you're doing, what you're learning to do and already doing is important. We need to work together. You don't need to do it alone, and work with other groups. So great to be here. I hope you'll take a serious look at making sure we have clean air in the Lower Mainland, and you can do your part by working with us. So we look forward to working with you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rob. I appreciate that. Great way to kick us off here. So next up, we have Mark Wandler. Mark is co-founder and CEO of Sustainable. My goodness, it is morning and I haven't had enough coffee apparently. A circular economy company that upcycles beer byproduct into sustainable baking mixes. Sustainable looks to be the leader in the fight against food waste in Canada. Mark is responsible for leading and growing the brand as a model circular economy business within the Canadian food industry. Mark, over to you.
Awesome. Thanks so much. And don't worry, sustainable is a mouthful, but once you say it and once you got it down, it comes easily. I love that Tessa shared about donut economics. Maybe she got you a little bit hungry. I love donut economics, but I also love donuts. Sustainable story actually starts with cookies. And it started with how do we introduce this premium sustainable flour into the economy? We're playing at the intersection of the circular economy and premium health foods. However, with inflation rising, we actually have the ability to not be a premium health food, but actually a sustaining health food with the rising costs of ingredients. So I'm going to show a quick video from our Kickstarter that started things off last year. It's 1 minute, and then I'll dive a little bit faster into the business in the next 4 minutes.
A colleague of mine came from the beer industry. And so he mentioned this problem of spent grain and how much they produce and how much of it's going to waste. And he said there must be a better solution. And so that's what we dived into. We're more than just a sustainability company. We're a company that's aiming to make a difference in the food space. We want to be a sustainable flour company. So we want to upcycle many other things in the future. And this is just the beginning. The spent grains that have gone through the brewing process are absent of almost all the sugar. So we're able to produce a flour that's high in fiber, high in protein, but almost zero sugars. We've known for a while now that we're throwing it away and we should be using it. And that barley, rather than just letting it be used once for a portion of it into a beer, let's turn it into a fully used grain again. Previously, without our solution, we're only using 32% of the grain. If we take the sustainable solution, we're actually using 87% of the grain.
All right, so we're playing at the intersection of two problems. Tessa mentioned we only have 8 years, so I'm going to go fast and furious over the next 4 minutes. So hang on to your seats. In North America, more than 50, or most of us don't even get 50% of our regulatory dietary intake. Now that $474 billion per year, that's the amount it's costing our healthcare system across North America. So you know we need to do something about it. It's been a problem for the last 40 years. At the exact same time, we've recently come to realize we're throwing away a massive amount of our food. So over 58% of food in Canada is wasted. What you might not know is 450,000 tons of that is this byproduct from craft breweries. I'm not even talking your bigger breweries, and that is per day. So how do we reincorporate that into the North American diet? So our thoughts are, instead of it going to 90 garbage trucks and over to landfill, we're going to take that 450,000 tons of spent grain and dehydrate it, put it in delivery trucks and get it into your grocery stores and into your diets. Fun part about this is it's ticking all the premium health products. So plant-based, high protein, high fiber, lower sugar. And we did talk about how we can actually do this with different byproducts in the future. So gluten-free is on our radar in the years to come. Now, when we talk about market opportunity, lots of people talk about this upcycled food waste category. So it's a $49 billion opportunity, but really it's a theoretical one. And it actually is doing a bit of a disservice because it's also talking about food at its lowest end of the spectrum, so right before. But if we pair it with the premium flour market, so we're getting a byproduct that's right from production, straight from the processor. And this is actually a $72 billion market and growing. People want to know the transparency of their food and want to know that it's healthier. So we're estimating that this is about 20% of the market, or 15 billion globally. North America is 40% of that market. So we're talking 6 billion, huge opportunity. And sustainable, because we know we only have 8 years, we're looking at being pretty aggressive and going after a $60 million chunk over the next 5 years with our micro facility model. Similar to Chop Value. Thanks, Felix, for starting the groundwork on that one. So why do we need BC's first dedicated food upcycling facility? Well, we're blowing out our capacity right now. And we can actually grow it by 500% with this upcycling facility. That's going from 10,000 kilograms a year of upcycled grains to over 5 million kilograms a year. The other thing is we're drastically decreasing the costs. Costs are spiraling out of control. We're starting to see it get above $18 a kilo, and we really need this solution. We can get under $1 a kilo the minute the facility launches, and then actually under 50 cents and closer to 25 cents once we reach operational capacity. Higher margins, well, that might be good for business, but it also unlocks wholesale revenue streams. We've already been approached by big companies who want to start using this ingredient in their research and development, and we want to be able to get it out there. We're also going to be solving a problem for breweries, as waste management is an increase in cost, and we don't even think this should be waste at all. So more R&D potential, more co-manufacturing potential, and this infrastructure is drastically lacking here in BC. So why we need the facility, apart from that it makes sense? One, awareness is growing. We've been doing increasing trade shows, and people are getting excited about this. It's both fun and healthy. You can see we're getting end cap opportunities, businesses are getting behind it, and even the big players are starting to get really interested in this space. Value proposition is we help mitigate the rising food costs. Two-pronged premium branding position. I think if we're just selling on sustainability, we're doing ourselves a disservice. What's in it for the actual individual? And it's a healthier diet and a more balanced diet. And lastly, you got to make high fiber tasty. A lot of fiber products aren't tasty. Ours are kid approved, well tasted, and growing revenues. So if you want to learn more, visit sustainable.ca. It all starts with the first bite, and thanks for having me.
Thank you so much, Mark. It's such an interesting space. And, you know, it's one of those things I think a lot of us enjoy a beer or two at our local craft breweries. And you think about what happens to all that waste. So it's great to see solutions are popping up. Thank you. So next up, we have Leanne Bueller. Leanne is a senior manager with BCAA's Strategic Ventures team and is leading the development of Evolve e-bike share, BCAA's new shared micromobility service under the Evo car share brand. Evolve e-bikes offers municipalities and businesses a sustainable and electrified solution to reduce carbon emissions, alleviate congestions, and encourage active transportation. Leanne is inspired by the speed and innovation in the micromobility industry and driven by the real-world impact the future transportation solutions are having on today's problems. As an avid Evo user, I'm quite excited to hear a little bit more about this. So Leanne, over to you.
Awesome. Thanks a lot. I'll just get my screen up here. Oh, pardon me. So as mentioned, my name is Leanne Buehler. I'm from BCAA, which is headquartered in Burnaby, of course. And today I'm going to share a little bit about this very niche transportation market, which is shared micromobility, and the impact that it's having on people, on cities, and of course on the earth in terms of its sustainability. A bit of context about shared mobility and BCA's role in this, and you heard that we are the owner-operator of Evo Car Share, a fleet of Toyota Priuses that service Metro Vancouver, including areas in Burnaby. And we're also adding 5 Kia Niros to our fleet, which are fully electric vehicles. And just as of December 2021, we launched Evolve e-bike share, and this is our new micromobility program that we're offering to cities and to businesses. When I talk about shared micromobility, if you're not a transportation nerd like I am, what I'm referring to is this sort of network of shared pedal bikes, e-bikes, e-scooters, or any sort of variation of those. Shared micromobility is a spectrum. Typically or conventionally, they're accessed through an app or an RFID card or even a physical station itself, and they can be docked or free-floating or some hybrid of both. And now that shared micromobility systems are really prevalent in cities and they've been operating for many years, we're starting to see the data, and it's super exciting and it's exponential. And this is really the exciting part of being in this space. So 157 million is the number of trips taken by a form of shared micromobility just in 2019 alone. It's 460% more than just 5 years ago. 12 million is the number of hours of physical activity taken by new shared micromobility trips. And those are trips that replaced like an auto trip. And the big one for today is 29 million pounds of CO2 offset by replacing an auto trip with a micromobility trip. So these are real numbers. This is a really exciting space. It's viable transportation, it's sustainable transportation, and it's growing at just an exponential pace. But with any growth comes challenges, and in the interest of time, I've thought about a couple of challenges that I thought might be interesting and relevant. The first one is shared micromobility suffers from a lack of infrastructure in cities and in regions. And when I talk about that, I'm talking about connected bike lanes, which is especially a barrier for new riders or riders who are maybe not as familiar or confident on a bike, a scooter. And the other challenge is that micromobility or shared micromobility isn't necessarily, the users aren't necessarily representative of a city's population sort of from a proportions perspective. So we still have work to do to close the gap in age, gender, ethnicity, and income when it comes to users. So we've got a long way to go, but I wanted to share a couple of things that I think are sort of the future of shared micromobility and some of the things that we're going to see in the next few years, probably. It's going to go fast. And that is, of course, growth and evolution. And I mean that by more vehicles and different types of vehicles. And when I talk about evolution, I'm talking about cities evolving their programs to sort of suit the residents better and serve more residents. In terms of technology, we're going to see advancements to increase safety and education and awareness for users, really using technology to shape and incentivize good behaviors and make it even easier for people to get on these modes of transportation. We'll see improved infrastructure, and that's not just bike lanes, but it's creating secure parking for people in their own modes of transportation. It's creating a network of bike lanes, not just independent bike lanes, but things that actually connect you to real and valuable places, as well as connection to public transit through infrastructure and technology. And then finally, I think we're going to see in this space the more private and public partnerships, and that's cities and private operators working together to address the needs of cities and address the needs of the population, and really filling some of the gaps that cities and operators can't do on their own, but can do together. So like I mentioned, BCAA's role in this is we're expanding our shared mobility to micromobility. We launched Evolve e-bike share just 6 months ago, and we've onboarded 3 clients in our business program. We've onboarded Lululemon, Deloitte, and Cadillac Fairview, who are now offering private fleets to their employees. And how we're running this program is it's not just a private fleet of bikes. That's good, but we're doing more than that. We're creating engagement and education to help users and consumers shift their behavior to using these modes of transportation when it makes sense. And we're really working and looking for partners that want to embed more sustainable transportation, more active transportation into the fabric of their existing network. My contact information and Brian, our business development manager's contact information is up on the screen there. If you want to talk more about micromobility and nerd out on transportation, we're always open to that. Or if you're curious about the program that we've got going on, we're happy to have a chat on that as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Leanne. All right. Next up, we have Felix. Felix founded Chop Value, the world's first circular economy franchise that designs and manufactures products using an innovative, highly scalable micro-manufacturing model. Motivated to create a global impact in the bamboo industry, he has gained experience by working on projects supporting companies of all stages in over 20 countries through his firm Crosslink Technologies, consulting teams in the natural fiber and material performance industry to develop new products and processes. Thank you so much, Felix, and over to you.
Thank you, Alex. I'm sorry, someone must have sent you a pretty long bio to introduce me. So what I usually say is I'm a garbage man living in Vancouver, and I recycle chopsticks for a living. And what makes me super excited is how often I'm hearing now in today's few talks the word micro, because I think it really represents that no matter when we're talking about micro facilities from Mark or micro mobility from Leanne, or us who developed the microfactory concept, I think what it actually embodies is we're trying to stay as local as possible, as community driven as possible in how we're defining our solutions. And I'm super thankful that I can share my story a little bit with Burnaby today. This is how my journey started in Metro Vancouver, in one of our transfer stations, where my background as German wood engineer got pretty frustrated looking at all this wood waste, and I always preach that wood should never ever be defined as waste material. Wood is always a resource. It's a natural material, and once it has gone through its 3 or 4 or 5 life cycles as an engineered material, it still shouldn't be waste. So I really got a little bitter 6-7 years ago in seeing all this wood and demolition waste, working for UBC, FP Innovations, and Metro Vancouver. And then I thought, how can I change our mindset locally? And how I'm doing that today with our amazing team around the world is we're doing it one chopstick at a time. And that's how we're working towards a circular economy, really tackling the story of resource efficiency and underutilized resources that we have right in front of us in our urban environment, how we tackle this with a humble chopstick as a story. And how we do it is we're making it local wherever you are. So our business model is as simple as it gets. We recycle chopsticks, that's our raw material. We produce in micro factories that are developed in the perfect economy of scale to be profitable to whoever runs them in whatever city they're located. And then we're creating design that lasts, not some trendy stuff that it doesn't look good anymore after 2 years. Simplistic, minimalistic designs and really, really high quality that can, create an innovative high performance material for commercial and residential spaces. And that's how we redefined that linear economy doesn't have a space in our society anymore. And that's how I explain to myself what circular economy actually means. Because what many people don't realize is when I started this journey, becoming a garbage man at Shop Value, I did not know what circular economy means, but I can now explain it really well based on the example of a chopstick that travels 6,000 miles from China to end up on my plate for only 20 or 30 minutes. And then we all feel good about throwing it into the bin. That's how it happened for decades, if not longer. We're importing more than 40 billion chopsticks per year to North America. That number was rising even more during the pandemic. And I heard North America is not the best or not even the highest chopstick user in the world. Our expansion market is obviously going to Asia and other countries where I hear there are even more chopsticks out there. I want to quickly remind everyone why this actually matters. We all talk about climate anxiety, saving the planet, greenest action plan, and all this stuff that I don't really care about, because what I care about is action and doing my part in my own abilities and what I can engage and motivate my team to work on every single day. And sometimes I have to remind everyone around me why it actually matters what we do. I think we're telling a really, really, really tangible story, a very relatable story with this humble chopstick that is part of a bigger problem. So when you're looking and why it matters, we're creating 2 billion tons of municipal solid waste annually in the world. And I'm currently creating a business that uses business as a force for good based on 0.015% of that problem. And I hope that doesn't only get you anxiety, but rather motivation that if we can do it with chopsticks, that, partially we are leading by example, but if we can do this with chopsticks, I hope many others look at us and say they can do it with other resources under the exact same concept as well. And that's what I wanted to share today, and hope I was able to contribute to this session today.
Thank you so much, Felix. And it's the little things you don't even really think about. Like, I would have never thought what happens to my chopsticks after I finish eating, but here you are creating solutions that are going to impact the entire world. So thank you for that. I'd just like to remind everyone as we approach our fifth and final speaker that if you have any questions at all, please do drop them in the Q&A, and we will get to our questions after our last speaker. So for our fifth and final presentation, I'd like to welcome Jose Rubio. Jose is the Managing Director of AVL Fuel Cell Canada, the Canadian division that specializes in fuel cell stack R&D, design, prototyping, and testing. He's been working in green tech, specifically fuel cells, for 13 years, initially at AFCC, which is a joint venture between Ford Motor and Mercedes-Benz, before starting AVL Fuel Cell Canada in 2018. Since then, the team at AVL Fuel Cell Canada has developed 3 unique fuel cell stack designs, which they sell to OEMs around the globe. Jose, over to you.
Hi guys, hope you can hear me okay. And I wanted to, let me know if not, but I wanted to maybe change gears a little bit and talk about hydrogen. Like, why do we hear so much about it? Maybe if you don't, I can introduce it and what role hydrogen will play in sustainability. So I'll get right to it. So oops, I got to get rid of this little picture blocking my way here. Here we go. So why do you hear so much hydrogen talk? And in essence, it's global warming from CO2. We've seen as CO2 concentrations have increased, we see temperatures warming in some areas, especially in the Arctic, as you can see on the right. High levels of like over 2 degrees Celsius. We're lucky, apparently, in this little pocket of Vancouver Island, of Vancouver and Vancouver Island, where we're seeing only about 0.5 to 1 degree so far, but other regions, quite huge regions, are seeing significant changes. And this is important. I mean, we know we're all here for sustainability due to global warming. So what role does hydrogen play? I'll get to that in a minute. But CO2 increase is is primarily caused by carbon-based fossil fuels, oil and gas. So these account for transportation, are big drivers of carbon dioxide, energy generation, electricity generation, and industrial uses. So big drivers. So hydrogen's, so why not just use renewable sources of electricity that exist, like wind, solar, and hydro? If we look at the world energy consumptions, we're at 18.5 trillion watts per year. And there's lots of sources out there of renewable energy. There's 23,000 trillion watts of solar available out there. Huge amounts of wind, hydro, biomass. Hydro is big in BC. But there's plenty of this, but it's usually at the wrong place and at the wrong time. So if you look at wind locations, you know, if we had wind farms in Greenland, sure, that'd be great, but how do you get that, transport that electricity to the areas that need it? You can see Patagonia is also a big region. Also with solar, it happens during some parts of the day. It's not available to be transported and stored to deliver to other areas. So the big problem with what's available out there is that we don't have storage and long distance transport. And that's really where hydrogen comes in. If we look at the same renewable electricity, you can run that electricity through an electrolyzer, which generates hydrogen, and then you store that for consumption in all sorts of usage, again, in industrial, shipping, aviation, transportation, all sorts of segments. But what I really wanted to focus on is really that storage part of hydrogen, and that's why it's so important compared to other technologies that you see out there. If we look at the potential for renewable energy trade in the future, we see several key areas of high hydrogen demand. We have North America, Europe, and Asia. And we see quite other different areas that have supplies of electricity. So we see, again, in North America, South America, in Africa, Middle East, and Australia. What hydrogen enables is that you can generate this electricity through the process I mentioned previously, store that, and deliver it to the areas that have high demand. So the reason you hear about so much about hydrogen so much is not just that it's carbon-free and renewable, but it's really that it's storable and transportable. And that's different from just the straight-up electricity that you have to consume right away. Specifically at AVL Fuel Cell Canada, what we do is we make fuel cells that convert this stored hydrogen into electricity for electric cars, buses, planes, ships. So hopefully this has given you a little bit of extra knowledge into the hydrogen economy, why that's coming, and why it's so important. But if I could leave you with one, it's really this bold section. It's because it's storable and transportable. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Jose. Much appreciated. That's really, it's very impressive and very, very interesting. So we are going to move towards the Q&A, and we'll start with a question perhaps for Jose, since he was our last speaker here. So in terms of the hydrogen, what are some of the applications now that we're seeing for these fuel cells that we can see on a daily basis?
The primary ones at the moment are transportation. We're seeing most activity in commercial trucking, and the benefit there is you can imagine batteries certainly make sense in some situations, like personal cars. In long range trucking, you have to carry like a mini battery truck to move your truck that distance. So that's right. Where hydrogen comes in, where you fill with hydrogen. It's quick. It's a 4-minute, 5-minute refill, similar to filling your diesel truck, and it allows you to continue transporting across the country completely green.
Wow, that's fantastic. And that it's funny because I feel like all of your businesses, to a certain degree, well, at least for Rob, Leanne, and Jose, almost kind of come together in certain ways, right? There's applications all around.
Another segment that we're seeing immediately is the marine space.
Okay.
The fuels used in marine, it's like the leftover fuel when you refine all of the good stuff. I mean, we're all trying to be sustainable and not use any of the good gasoline, but it's really the sludge left at the bottom. And this is extremely dirty.
Right.
It's been limited for usage in some fjords in Norway because it pollutes massively. So that's another area that we're seeing immediate expansion.
Right. Interesting. Thank you. So a question for Rob. So to kind of touch back on, you wouldn't find a greener chief executive officer than Robert Safrata. So what are your biggest sort of takeaways then for green applications that some of our businesses might be able to integrate into their businesses moving forward?
The question really is each business is different, and to start, the easiest thing is to do an audit, have an audit done, and there are many groups that will do that. And then, you and your associates will get a report, pieces of paper, and it'll show the low-hanging fruit. It'll show, where you can start, where your biggest impact is. So that's really quite individual to each business.
Right.
But we've extended beyond our building, what we do, and that's where we're really conscious about our purchasing dollars, what we buy, who we buy from. That is ours, the government's, tool to make a statement and to drive it. And I think those are the important places to look. And it's great that I really enjoy, by the way, these green talks. I learned so much. There's so many great players around doing wonderful things. It's inspiring.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you. And then a question for Leanne. As the fleet sort of expands, how do you see sort of the sharing economy moving forward? Do you see sort of the growth? Is there any particular demographics that it affects? And sort of what do we need to do sort of in general to buy into this sharing economy?
Yeah, I think the growth is definitely in size and scope. And as cities start to urbanize, I mean, we're going to have 1 million more people in the region. We're going to see some of these smaller cities grow as well. I think micromobility operators have a responsibility and accountability to help make it more accessible to more types of people. And that definitely is part and parcel of sort of that connection between public and private partnerships where, maybe there's opportunities for subsidization to help with lower income individuals. It's more education for riders who are not typically part of the sort of cycling demographic and expanding that out. And then really working with cities to create that infrastructure so that riding is comfortable for more people and more abilities.
No, absolutely. Thank you. Yeah, definitely the infrastructures. Hopefully we will all kind of collectively work together to begin to create more solutions so that we can all work together as an ecosystem towards sustainability movements. And sort of on that thought pattern, a question perhaps for Mark and Felix, and I don't mean to lump you in together, but it seems to apply. You both have taken seemingly small things that aren't really top of mind and created these wonderful sustainable solutions that'll have a big impact. In terms of your space, where do you see it going in terms of the growth for, we'll call it these micro solutions and moving forward? And perhaps you could expand a little bit more on what's needed as well to move these spaces forward.
Yeah, I mean, I can't really speak for example, Mark's business.
Well, I was going to say, I'll let you both speak.
but when it comes to us, I mean, I'm coming from the manufacturing perspective, right? And the last factory I designed before I started Chop Value was 157 million euro investment, which was one big mass factory in Slovakia that then got 200 trucks of resource in, and at the end of the day, got 200 trucks of product out and had to ship that all around the world. So you ask yourself, if you have that much money to invest with today's technology and communication, and everyone is online anyways, could we invest these 157 million euros into 300 microfactories around the world that produce with local resources, in our case, underutilized waste resources, into locally needed products by local talent, instead of like how much carbon can we already just remove from all these crazy
Right, of
shipping
course. Yeah.
logistics that do not create any value to our end product or customer experience. So my vision is really, from a manufacturing perspective, to make sure that every single microfactory that we're opening is efficient and viable and profitable itself. And I mean, I see it very relevant. Like 2.5 years ago, we had one location in Vancouver where we started, and we have now 60 locations signed and in development around the world, from Singapore to UK, US, Canada, Mexico, and Europe. And I think that's where it's headed, where we can really make sure we take advantage of the local communities.
That makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah, in like a similar vein, different product, craft breweries have kind of taken off everywhere.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
And so anywhere that has a craft brewing scene can have a micro facility. But it isn't very interesting chatting with investors. We have to break down this old thinking that you build a small facility and then you keep building a bigger and bigger facility. And that's their way of growth.
Right.
Versus us, it's like replicating this. And basically we're disrupting distribution, which needs to be done. If we think of Amazon, for example, Amazon's doesn't make any money off their delivery. They actually lose a ton of money on their distribution and delivery. They make it all off their cloud systems. So as we see less people being able to subsidize this delivery, Amazon's probably going to push away from it soon.
Right.
I know for us, when we started out our business, we had our online shop and we wanted to drive some traffic there. But now we're starting to not want to drive any there whatsoever. So the economics and inflation is really, I think, going to put these models that Felix and I are building into overdrive and really validate them, because the cost of shipping things is what's going up faster than everything else.
So it's so interesting. And as a person in communication has studied the internet and thinking about how the effect about how we've learned how to consume and how that has to change for us to be more sustainable is very interesting. So thank you for that. That's a very interesting thought. Well, that's all of our questions. So I'd just like to say again, a big thank you to all 5 of our presenters for today's Green Talks webinar. I know I learned a lot from all of these speakers, and we hope that you did as well. So upon leaving today's event, I'd like to end on this thought. We've all learned some new things here, but what's next? How can you make a difference? I challenge you to look at your business, your own job, your family, your community. How can you find ways to be more sustainable, to create a better world for yourself, for your community, and for the next generation? Even the smallest of changes, as we learned today, can have a major impact. So I'd like us all to consider some of the insights from today's event and find a way to include them in our daily lives. So one more time, thank you again to all 5 of our presenters for your insights on sustainability and for taking the time to be with us today. Thank you to the sponsors of Green Talks, SFU, BCIT School of Business and Media, Douglas College, Blue Myth Technologies, Electronic Arts, Hemlock Printer, ABC Recycling, Port of Vancouver, Appia Development, Alexander College, and RICO. And finally, a big thank you to everyone who tuned in this morning, and have a wonderful afternoon, everyone. Take care.